Yo, yo, yo. Just a little public service announcement for this recent episode of the Gospel of Fire. I'm new to this podcast shit, guys, and I'm working on recording for myself for the first couple times. My first record, I did all right in the Corey episode, and then Corey and I were together, and this one I had to do over Skype, and I fucked it up a little bit. Sorry, guys. So the audio is a little off on this one. I really apologize. It's what it is, right? We fail, and then we just do it again. So I have another one coming soon with my man Curtis, the Razor Blades, and I'll try to do a lot better for you guys. So again, I apologize for the messed up audio on this one. I didn't want to not release it, though, because it's very important that you fucking own your mistakes. You still put that shit out there. You let everyone know, and then you just keep on plugging, guys. So bad audio on this episode. We'll fix it next time. Sorry. Hey guys, this is Eliot Marshall, former UFC fighter, and this is the Gospel of Fire, where we're going to go through the fire to learn the best way to live our life. All right, here we go. I am here with my man, Rourke Weaver, for the next episode of the Gospel of Fire. Rourke, how are you?
I am good. How are you, Eliot?
What are you doing today, man? What's going on?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go train. So I'm heading up to Arvada here in a little bit, and then we're going to be kind of just working, getting things set for our next initiative. It is National Recovery Month right now.
Okay.
So the nation is turning its eyes to recovery, and we're doing what we can in Colorado here to kind of represent that well.
All right, so I guess we're going to talk about the two things. What you talked about is what we're going to talk about today. First, let's talk about some jiu-jitsu. That's how you and I know each other, is through the academy.
That's right.
How long ago was that? Were you a white belt when I started teaching you in Scott, or what was that?
Oh, yeah. No, I was definitely a white belt because you gave me – yeah, that's right, because I must have been a two-stripe white belt because it was when Scott and I went to Vegas. The Denver Academy had just opened up, and I had just moved down to Denver from Boulder, where I'd first started training. And Scott and I were just starting to open up Phoenix down in Denver, and we started going and doing the privates with you. So it was in Vegas that I did that competition. I won by, guillotine and everything, and then you gave me my blue belt.
Gotcha. Yes. All right. I remember that now. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Most people that come on my podcast do jiu-jitsu or fight or something. So that's pretty basic. But the reason I'm having you on is because of your work in the sobriety field. So let's start with maybe your story. How long? So I guess you're never not an alcoholic, right? You still consider yourself an alcoholic?
Yeah, I still consider myself an alcoholic.
All right. So how long were you using alcohol and drugs and things like that?
I started drinking when I was 12, and that went. There was a slight time in between where I wasn't drinking too much, and then I went until I was about 21.
Okay.
So
20. And how old are you now?
I'm 32 now.
32. So you have 12 years sober. 11 years sober.
11 years sober. Yep.
11 years sober. And you still count? Do you still count like every day? Do you know how many days you've been sober?
No, God, no.
Okay.
All right. No, I stopped that after like 6 months. My brain isn't big enough for much more math than that.
Well, it's only adding one every day, bro. If
you would think, yeah.
But
then you forget one.
Yeah.
And then you got to add 2 days.
Yeah, and then you start fucking up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like real complicated math, bro. It's just like basic addition. It's just remembering to do the addition.
Yeah,
right?
but the linchpin's in the remembering, and
right.
that's the tough part.
No, I hear you, man. I like to compare like my anxiety a little bit with almost like alcoholism, and I hope it doesn't offend you. But
no, not at all.
I feel like I am like it's like a pride thing. Yes, I have anxiety. So then I have to take and it's not like, oh, I'm having anxiety today. Right? Like I think that's how you see alcoholism, right? It's not like you're like, oh, I'm an alcoholic today and I'm not going to be an alcoholic tomorrow, so I can have a drink tomorrow.
Right.
Or I don't have to do the things that I need to do to to keep going in this process of dealing with my alcoholism.
Exactly. You're going to wake up tomorrow, and though you may not feel anxiety, you know that that's inherently a part of who you are. It's in your makeup, right? At any point that could come back. And so what are the things that you are doing? And I know that you've talked a lot about this, like you have your own process, but similarly to addiction and for me personally, alcoholism, like I know that thing is a part of me. And I've really come to the conclusion personally, and everybody's different, but that's going to be something that I'll always have. So what am I doing today to manage that thing?
Let me ask you a question. Let's get into that thing a little bit before we get into how you got out of that thing. What do you think drove you there? Why do you think there's anything specific in your life that made you want to drink?
Yeah, I've spent so much time obsessing over this question because in the recovery field and in my own personal recovery program, we have a lot of definitions for this, for the why, right? We always want to know the why.
Right.
And there tends to be two camps, right? And probably more like three. The third one being, well, you're weak and you just, you don't know how to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But the other two,
I hate that fucking phrase. Fucking phrase drives me insane.
We can go into a whole thing about this because it's resurging right now, and it's driving me absolutely batty. But
man.
Yeah, it's wild. Stigma's coming back. It's pretty intense to watch. But the kind of getting back to the two pieces. One is that it's a disease, right? Oh no, you're good. One part is it's a disease, right? We're born with it. It's something that we have, and that our brains or our bodies, like to a cellular level, react differently to alcohol or drugs in general. We just have this predisposition that we will react differently. Similarly, like some people have a predisposition to cancer, we have a predisposition to alcoholism. And so, and other drug addictions. I'll say alcoholism for me personally, but I mean the whole addiction spectrum.
The whole addiction spectrum, right.
Yeah. So, that's one camp. The other camp is to say, there were circumstances, something happened, we were ill-equipped, trauma, a young childhood trauma happened, and we had and that really caused the predisposition to alcoholism, or addiction. And so, there's kind of these two, it's what came first, the chicken or the egg, or more like,
Okay. So, I mean, this just falls right into what I believe actually, because I don't believe in free will. Okay.
Right.
And when you don't believe in free will, I believe that we are nothing more than our chemical makeup combined with our past experience. And that's exactly what you're saying right there. Like the two camps, right? And it's a combination of the two. It's not one, in my opinion, it's never one or the other.
Dude, we're on the exact same page. So I feel like there's maybe my folks. So, okay, so they say it's hereditary, right? So I got it from my lineage, my history. But my parents, neither of my parents have an alcohol problem.
Right.
They didn't get it whatsoever. Their parents had it, so it skipped a generation. But I do think that, they had the bug, but for whatever reason, either societally or as they grew up, something didn't spark that, or they saw their parents and that kept them away from it. But for me, I had that bug, and then certain elements in my life really sparked it or stoked that flame.
You can see it just in children of the same generation, right? You have two kids with growing up with, let's just say, an alcoholic father. One looks at that father and goes, "Oh man, fuck that guy. I'm never going to drink because of that." And then the other looks at that dad and goes, "Man, that's what my dad did. I'm going to drink." Right.
And for me, when I had my first drink, when I first really got drunk, there was an unmistakable, it was a click, right? everything is going to be okay. And for the first time in my life, I felt like, oh, this is what peace and comfort feels like. So there really was like physical, like, this is it.
Did you have a rough childhood?
No, I had a wonderful, loving family, and, we had our struggles for sure, but compared to the rest of the world, like, yeah, dude, things were fucking great.
Right. So it wasn't like, your dad was beating you or your mom or your brothers and sisters. It was normal.
Right. And I think it's really important that we just that gets said, right? Like, I had a normal childhood. I had a loving family. Right. When we think of addiction and alcoholism, once we get past that, like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, the next kind of logical conclusion is like, oh, you were beaten or raped as a kid. Right. Or like something awful happened to you as a child. And it's like, no, that it doesn't have to be that either. It happens all socioeconomical levels, all races, creeds, backgrounds, and, experiences.
Yeah. We just too often, and I think a lot of this, I don't know what your opinion is, I think a lot of it comes from fear, because everyone wants to be like, oh, that won't happen to me because these things didn't happen to me. Right?
For sure.
And then that's why that person is flawed or different or yada yada, because we're just so scared of it. And
absolutely.
And it goes back to my thing where, like, I feel like it's because we don't know how to deal with hell. Right? We don't know how to deal with hell when we're alive. And I've talked about this a lot on my podcast. I have no clue what happens to us after we die, but I know hell comes for us while we're alive. And we are really, really scared of that. And we run from it, and we try to find all these excuses of why it won't come for us.
Yeah. And, and that unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we fear so much the unknown. And,
yeah, man.
And I agree with, like, the hell piece, right? We don't know, but we actively avoid that too because we're afraid of what we don't know. Can I do that thing? Will I overcome that obstacle? And for me, and this brings up another, like, really important piece. Some people, like, I was born with alcoholism or a predisposition to addiction. Like, some people are born inherently confident, right? Or inherently, like, even on a metaphysical level, they have, either their parents loved them, they just had this belief system. They had a certain body type, an archetype that really allowed them to be confident. And I think we see those people in leadership a lot of times. And, but there are a lot of other people who weren't born with that, and they fear what they don't know. And so does those leadership archetypes. Like, we just inherently fear what we don't know. And it's the same thing with when we look at another person and we see them struggle. We apply our logic to that person because that's our easy default. And when that doesn't work, if we aren't confident in ourselves, if we aren't able to really say, like, that what worked for me doesn't work for that person, and I'm still okay. Like, that line of thought, if we had that line of thought through everything, like, we would be in a much different world.
Yeah.
But when we say, you need to do this my way, and when that way doesn't work for that person, then I have to question my own belief system. That's fear of religion. That's fear that I see in recovery. That's fear that we see in politics. Because if it doesn't work my way, then I have to question my quality, my worth.
Your whole life can fall apart.
For sure.
Like, it
right?
can like when you can't get, in my opinion, when you can't get good with hell, and then you start having all these other questions, your whole fucking life can just go boom, and we just run from that. We just run from that because, holy shit, man, I don't want to be like Rourke Weaver,
Right.
Because Rourke Weaver has all that shit over there. And, man, I am not like Rourke. And if I'm like Rourke, then I'm going to be an alcoholic. And
totally.
It can just go wild, man.
Yeah. And, and I will say, like, it is that amazing, and I'm sure you would agree, like, once you walk through that crucible of hell, right, like, once you realize you can take that kind of punishment, and you come out the other side, there's like, an incredible amount of confidence this game. Like I'm grateful for my alcoholism, and I went through, and I don't know what the language here is, but like I went through fucking hell. Like it was everything I could describe as hell. But like coming out of it, I'm grateful for it.
What was hell? Will you talk about hell a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I said I started drinking at 12. I mean, but I remember it starting before that. I remember being 9 years old, and I grew up out, in Lafayette back when it was, there was still country, and I grew up out there, and I just remember walking.
Streets. Let's just make sure everyone's aware. The mean streets of Lafayette, Colorado.
the mean streets of Lafayette. I grew up hard, man.
That's why you drank, man.
That's right. It wasn't easy, bro. I tell you. But
uphill in the snow both ways.
Yeah, that mean. No, it was. I grew up out in the country, and I was walking in a field, and I'm just like, I want to die. Like as a 9-year-old, I wanted to die. I didn't want to live. And I remember even having that thought, like, that's weird. I don't know if other kids my age are having that thought. And so, and I had this just awkwardness. I was so afraid of people, and I was so afraid of not being accepted, and just not fitting in. And then at 12 years old, I had my first drink, and I should say I got drunk for the first time. Okay. And like I said, it was like this bam snap, like it saved me. And that was that night I decided, like, this, if this is how good I feel right now, then I'll feel this good forever. And I did, man. I went after that goal hard. I pretty much, the next 7, I mean, what is that, 12? The next 9 years were just chaos. I barely made it through high school. I kept it together somewhat, but I was cutting. I was doing I started cutting myself and was just miserable on the inside, just trying to survive. And then I graduated and went to Steamboat. Got into college up there. And,
so you were cutting yourself?
Yeah. It was so a big piece of this, right? And a big piece of my story with jiu-jitsu was I felt so weak, right? I was like the smallest kid in my school. Like, I had a lip on me, so I got picked on a lot when I was in middle school, and then I went to high school, and it was like I just tried to disappear. And I had so much rage. I had so much anger at the world, and I felt so weak, and I couldn't take it out on anybody. But you know what I could do was I could take it out on myself. And when I cut, it was like all that rage, all that anger was like focal pointing it to something, and it felt amazing. And like, I understand why people cut. Like it's there's a visceral like release. Wow,
so, I never understood why.
Yeah, I mean it's for the most part, I think, like I can't express my rage on you because I am afraid of that, but I can internalize that. I can point it back at me and let it out. It's powerful. There's no doubt. So, anyways, I went to Steamboat, and like, that's when the wheels fell off, right? I got up to Steamboat. RA's taking us around, like showing us the college. It's a shitty little mountain college, but there's, I'm touring around with people. I'm like, this is cool. That's great. How many of you drink? And everybody raised their hand. And even the RA was like, don't worry, kid, you're in the right spot. And for the next 2-3 years, I'd gotten a DUI the night before graduation or the day of graduation. And that had been like 3 MIPs or minor in possessions with a DUI. And I was on daily breathalyzers for 6 months, and I drank every day.
So this is before Steamboat? This
is before Steamboat. So 3 months later, I'm going up to Steamboat, and I'm having to do these daily BAs in Steamboat, breathalyzers, and I'm drinking every day. So I hit this routine where it was like go in to the breathalyzer, to go into the police station at 8:00 at night, do a BA, and then go out and rage until 2 a.m., cut off, get clean, go in and do it over again. And, that for a large part, that kept me at least moderately sane, because when those 6 months were over, everything, school didn't matter, life didn't matter. I just drank.
You're saying the having to go in to take the BA kept you moderately sane.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's like, this is like this just underlying it all is just this hatred of myself. This like, you're weak, you're pathetic, you're never going to be anything. Nobody likes you. You're awkward, and you just aren't good. Like, you don't fit in this world. You just missed the mark. And I'd wake up every morning and I'd remember what I did the night before, and it would be like doubly powerful, right? So you did this, you made this ass of yourself, you threw up on your buddy, whatever it was, and then I have to take that. And that's the like light stuff. The bad stuff is, much worse. But, you woke up and you had to take it all in again. And the first thing that I would do is just be like, oh my God, just panic. And I'd just start drinking again. And that lasted for like 2 years, the end of which was, the fun part is when the withdrawals start kicking in. Because after a while, like, now your body depends on it. It's not mental anymore. Now it's mental and physical. You wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning in a full-blown panic attack, not because of your memories, but because your body's withdrawing from alcohol. And then you double down on the fact that you're feeling all those feelings that you already felt, and now you're just pounding booze just to like maintain some equilibrium. So it's I try and explain like withdrawals is like it's a panic attack with total loss of body function, and like everything. Not just an impending doom, but now you're hearing things and seeing things that aren't there with a total loss of body function. Like,
so you're hallucinating a little bit through here.
So it starts, right? First it was auditory. So about year 2, the withdrawals really start. And I start getting to a place where I'm like, this is pretty bad. I don't think other 20-year-olds are going through the same thing I'm going through.
But that's not a different thought for you, right? Because you've been having that thought your whole life.
Absolutely, right? Like, and and I had that thought so many times that I had these like, these just back of the pocket excuses that I'd just pull out, and I'd be, in my head, and I'd be like, okay, that's fine, right? As a kid who never had identity, who desperately wanted to feel some identity to something, like it was sick, but like alcoholism became my identity, and I embraced it, right? Like I got to be somebody.
You were the guy at the party that was going to get fucking wrecked.
That was going to get fucking housed. Like I was going to tear down walls and just destroy things. Like that was who I got to be, that guy. And even though nobody liked that guy, at least I had identity. At least I had something. I knew who I was. Somebody
liked you every night. It was a different person.
Yeah.
I mean, like that guy is always exciting to somebody, right?
Yeah, for sure. For a while, right? And then things start to like go south when they're like trying to smash 40 bottles over their head and they're bleeding all over everybody's floors. It's like at some point that night goes south. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I would have to do is I'd have to change groups, right? Like always have 4 or 5 groups that you hang out with, because then you can rotate through. If you screw it up with one group, by the time, a week goes by, they forgive you. So I just do this kind of rotation in Steamboat where I'd go to these groups and, I'm make an ass of myself or really hurt a relationship or really do something that, was awful. Like I just, go to the next group.
Right.
But the end of which, so I'm doing all this, the end of which I was drinking about every morning. I would wake up, I would slam like some shooters. And then I would go out and I'd get a 40 rack or what was it? It was a 12 rack of tall boys. And the like little shooters, and I'd do like 5 of those. And that was my daily routine. I'd drink about 24 beers and I'd have like 5 shooters. And that was what I did every day. I stopped eating. I lost kind of like all function. And I just tried to stay alive. And yeah, like that can only last so long, right? Because the withdrawals started getting worse. And then I lost the function of my hands. So when fun things happen when withdrawals get really acute or really bad is your hands start to shrivel up. So if you can kind of think of like a T-Rex hand, like that's what happens with the body as it kind of shuts down when it's in full withdrawal. And so I wouldn't be able to use my hands. And I'm teaching skiing and snowboarding. I'm teaching little kids how to ski. So I would have to go into this bar in the morning, and this bar would have to pour me 3 tall boys or 3 tall shots with a straw in it. And like, I mean, you want to talk about like
you couldn't pick the glass up, so it had to have a straw.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Like I couldn't pick it up because I'm shaking so bad and my hands don't open up. It's like rigor mortis.
And this motherfucker poured you the drinks rather than took you to the hospital.
For sure.
Fuck,
and,
yeah.
Sure, and you want to talk about like mortifying is like going into a bar and like all these people are looking at you while you're drinking out of a straw 3 tall shots or 5 tall shots.
Holy fuck, man. Fuck that noise. Like, I mean, I was a bartender. I'm pretty sure I would like to say if you walked into my bar, I would
You'd be like, nah, you're good.
I might pour you one with a 911 call.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get you to calm down maybe, but like followed immediately by a 911 call.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I mean, I don't blame them. A lot of people have said that, but like I convinced them, right? Like I needed this. This was my medicine. And I'd like gotten in with these people and we did all kinds of crazy shit at this bar. But like, whatever, like, yeah, it was weird, man. Like I still think back to that and just like how like my gut still turns with that feeling of like looking around this bar, sipping these like shots out of a straw. And these people just kind of like shaking their head at me like, like that's a disgusting human being. And oof, yeah, that was a tough time.
Yeah. I bet.
So the end of which, and I'll wrap up my story here, but like, so I'm in Steamboat. That's all happening. Things are getting progressively worse. I'm withdrawing more and more. And I end up moving places and I try and quit, right? Like I'm trying. And, side note, one of my favorite stories before I finish out how I stopped, but like,
okay.
So there's this like, this is when it was like,
hold on, let's get a good one.
Yeah. This is when I was like, okay, maybe I have a problem. This is what started like, maybe I should not like kind of moderate. So I'm sitting here so I'm living with this group, right? And we're all living in this house and it's Steamboat. So it's like 7 people to a 2-bedroom house. And we're, we have this one roommate and he's this dirty junkie, right? Like this pill popping, heroin doing, just junkie, disgusting person. And we had this weird fucking schedule, right? So like he was a junkie and I was an alcoholic. Funny things with that is they have different schedules. So we were like ships passing in the night. I would pass out around 2:00 and he would wake up around, 2 and start banging drugs. And by the time I was waking up, he was going to sleep. So we had this weird situation where we were constantly passing each other. But we'd hear stories about each other all the time.
This is so funny. I mean, like, I guess it's not funny, but I'm just like, holy shit.
Junkie stories, man, they're the best.
This is good.
So like, we're like passing each other at night or in these times, and I'm judging the shit out of this kid, right? Like, I'm like, that dirty junkie. Like, what is he doing? He's a fucking mess, and
he's like that alcoholic fuck.
Oh, bro, yeah. So like the best part, this is the best part of this story, is like he comes into my room one day, or like I'm on the couch, and this fucking junkie comes up to me and he drops the fucking big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on my lap and goes, "Yo, dude, you need this more than I do." And it was like, bang. Like the insult that I had to take for that, like it was earth shattering. So that was the first time I was like, maybe there's a problem here.
When the prostitute walks up to you and tells you you're sucking too much cock, right?
Totally right.
Like you might be sucking too much cock.
You might have a problem. Here's your sign. So it was. I'm trying to quit, but the withdrawals become so bad that now I start to see things. So I'm starting to hear things. And I'd wake up at night and it would be like there's this party outside my house. And I mean, I can't like think of being at your house. I'm sure you've had people partying next door. Like it's as vivid as that. And I heard people for weeks, and then I was like, what the hell is this? Why is there a party every single night outside my house? And I walked outside and it was like stone quiet. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. And those progressively got worse. And as that was going on, I was doing foundations. I was working construction. And I was working construction. I was humping forms down in these big sites. And I had a withdrawal seizure on the site. Now, there's some really bad places to have a seizure. And on a like construction site with rebar sticking out everywhere, like on platforms, like that's a really bad place to have a withdrawal seizure. And it was like bang, and it happened. And I remember just coming out of it and be like, what the hell? I mean, it's similar to being like knocked out, which I just had this experience of. Like this, you're kind of awake and you're present, but your brain's not firing on all cylinders, so you're not making sense of things.
Right.
And I just remember being there and then coming to and going, oh God, what happened? And then that happened again on the withdrawals or on the work site. And obviously, they had to fire me. But like my body's starting to deteriorate. And the end of all this was the end of Steamboat was I'm sitting on the couch trying one last time not to drink. And I go into full blown, like auditory visual hallucinations. My body's not working. And I know I'm going to die that night. Like it gets it's hard to explain, but it's like, you just know. I knew there was no question. I was dying. And I knew
the devil himself is coming for you.
Well, hilariously enough, and I don't really talk about this story much, but like that's exactly what happened. So I had a talk with the devil, and the devil said I was dying that night, and he was coming for me. No bullshit. That was the full blown visual hallucination too.
So you were seeing the devil as well.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was more like a black kind of rent or cut in kind of behind me. It was this weird third body experience where I was outside of my body and I saw this blackness behind me with this voice. And it was like, you're dying tonight. I finally get you. I've been waiting a long time. And so being a good Catholic boy, my friend finds me like fucking wigging out on the couch. And instead of like, hey, I need to go to the hospital, things aren't really great. I go, I need to go see a priest and get last rites. I'm going to die. And she, luckily, being a great friend, doesn't do that. She takes me to the hospital. And they hook me up and they try and knock me out. And it like my withdrawal, my heart's so jacked that it doesn't even faze me. And they hit me again, try and knock me out with drugs. They're trying to sedate me, so that they can transport me to a safe place. And the nurse is looking at me like, dude, I just hit you twice. You should be like out.
You should almost be dead.
Yeah. And it's like, and I'm having a fully lucid conversation with her. Like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm wide awake.
You want me to drive?
And, yeah, right. It's like, I actually am like leveled out now. And then I see it, and I'm seeing in the mirror, or seeing in the reflection. So they had the crash cart with like 6 people that were outside and trying to hide from me, and they were going to strap me down, because they knew kind of the acuity of the withdrawals. And so the nurse is like, and I'm like laughing with her. I'm like, I see your guys outside the door. Like, I know what they're trying to do. Like, hey guys, I see you. And she's like, I don't know how to hit this, like knock this kid out. So she hits me one more time, and I go out. They strap me down. And as they're transporting me, I come fully out of it again. And I have I'm in full blown hallucination with withdrawals. And I'm thinking they're taking me to a basement dungeon to rape me. And I flip out. And so, they hit me again. I knock out. I wake up in the hospital, and it's the police, my parents, and the doctors. And the doctor kind of...
Why the police? What's the police about?
So they had gotten... So over my time that I'd been at Steamboat, I had a few run-ins. And with the BAs, like, they knew who I was. And I think... more than anything, I think the doctors had called and said, like, hey, look, it's going to be a different type of intervention than we see on TV, but this is going to be a type of intervention. Because I wake up and they're like, hey, kid, Steamboat's not for you. You need to go home. And, the doctor had pulled me aside, and he was like, hey, look, we've run the tests. You have about a year to live if you continue to go the direction you're going. Your body's shutting down. And I was like, okay, cool. And I left there, and God, there's so many stories, but my mom had to go to my house and pick up everything, and she cleaned up the place. And I mean, you want to talk about filthy, like crack den, gross. Like, I was living on a broken futon. It was tilted to the side. I had one blanket and just beer bottles and vomit everywhere. And the dogs used that room as their like bathroom. And that was what I went home to every night. And that's where I lived. And she had to go in and clean that up. I mean, the horror of having to put her through that. So I went back down to, I moved out of Steamboat. Side note, I thought I was only there for like one night. I ended up going back up to town like 2 years later after I was sober to make amends to the girl who saved my life. And, I was starting to do that. And she's like, hey, let me stop you right there. How long did you think you were at the hospital? I was like, I don't know, a night. And she's like, you were there 4 days. And I came and saw you, and we talked, and you'd pissed your pants while we were talking. You don't remember any of that, but you were there 4 days in the ICU. You were dying. And it was kind of this like, oh man, all this stuff I've put these people through. So I moved back to Denver, or moved back to Boulder, and I'm living with my folks. And
how'd you get out of hell, man? What did you do?
Yeah. So long story short, I relapsed a few more times, and I'm trying to get sober. And it's always this, like, it's your problem. You did this to me. It's your fault. It's the society's fault. It's the fact that I'm the victim here. I'm not the one who did this. Like, I'm just trying to survive, and this is how I do it. And so I relapse again and again, and finally it comes, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I've made it 28 days. It's the longest I ever did, and 28 days, and St. Patrick's Day comes, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. I know what my people do on this day, and that's what I'm going to do.
Because you're a good Irish Catholic, right?
Because I'm a good Irish boy. Yeah, I'm a good Irish Catholic boy. So I go out and I drink. And the funny thing is like every alcohol group, if anybody who listens to this ever has a DUI, let me give you a quick explanation of what you're going to hear. So we're going to draw a graph, and we're going to say 1, 2, 10. and we're going to go 1 to 10 up, just typical graph. And what we're going to say is past 3 drinks, 1 on the left-hand column going vertically is going to be negative consequences. And on the right or on the bottom is going to be horizontal, is going to be amount of drinks. And as I have more drinks, more negative consequences come up. And they're going to draw a line through 3 drinks. 3 drinks is the maximum amount that I can have safely without having abnormally large amounts of negative consequences. And so I went out that night and I had 3 beers and I was like, what? Like, no one thought I could do it. Had 3 beers on St. Patrick's Day. I'm obviously not an alcoholic. Well, the next 3 weeks, it gets worse and worse, more and more, to the point where it's like full blown again. And it was kind of so my mom finds me for the last time passed out in the bathroom, which I did this weird thing where I'd go in the bathroom and I'd lock the door and I'd pass out. And that was kind of the sign to them that like I was drunk. And she looks at me and like, I will, there are very few things that I remember from like the haze of my drinking, but I will never forget the look on that woman's face when she had to kick her baby boy out of the house and say, I can't watch you die anymore. I can't do this to myself. You need to leave. And so she kicked me out. And I was really fortunate to have a friend who took me in, and the next 3 days was a different kind of hell. It was more of a psychological hell, whereas before it was much more of a physical hell. And I had to face the stark reality that I had nothing left, that even the woman who I knew would always be there for me, even she pulled the plug. And it was in that desperation that I was like, all right, I'm going to die. I want to kill myself. I've tried. I gave it a shot. I'm ready to die. And so that last day I woke up and my friend had hidden my booze, and it was kind of this last, like, that's it. I'm ready to die. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm ready, right? Like, I got the plan. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm ready. And I ended up getting 4 phone calls that day, and just people who were like, hey man, how you doing? Just wanted to let you know we love you. And I don't know why, but I just wanted to call and tell you I love you. And everybody's got a different story, but for me, it was like fucking lightning, dude. Like this thought that was like impossible before. I'd certainly had it, but it was impossible before. It was maybe I can just not drink. Before it was, there's no way I can do that. And I haven't had a drink since then.
So people saved your life.
Yeah. People. I believe deeply that like truly the opposite of addiction is connection. And Johann Hari talks about it in his book, Chasing the Scream, which I think is a wonderful book.
Yeah, for sure. Did you get me to read that book, or did I get you to read that book? Which one was it?
I think you got me to read that book, actually.
Yes,
I didn't.
James got me to read that book.
Yes, because I forgot about that. Yeah, it was you. Yeah. Dude. So that, I had been searching for, you got me to read that, probably a year and a half ago. So that means I was right around 10 years. So 10 years. I was trying to find the words for what I had felt, what I had gone through, because it was community that saved my ass. It was this group that I found. And if we want to talk about what got me out of hell, when I started going, and I work a program, it's a 12-step program. I'm no representative of it. And I won't say which one, but I'll just say I work a 12-step program. I was blessed because I came in when there was a group of people a year sober, and there was a group of people that were coming in with the exact same time as I did. And we were desperate, and we all came together and we formed like metal, and we held each other accountable. We hung out with each other, and there was this desperation to find sobriety. And we did that for 5 years. And if I hadn't done that, there's no way I'm sober today. No way.
It's what got me out of anxiety too. Connection.
Yeah.
Connect, like real connection. And if there's anything that we're going to do for each other in this world, it's going to be that we're going to be there for each other.
Right.
There's
right.
nothing else to do. You know? There's just nothing else to do. There's no money you can give. Like, all of that's great, you know?
Yeah.
All of that's great, and you know, like I believe in all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're gonna do is, in the pits of somebody's hell, we're gonna go down there with them, right? Mm-hmm. We're gonna go down there with them, and we're gonna hold their hand or give them a hug or whatever it is, and someone's gonna say, "I got you, homie."
Right. I see you. Yeah. I see you, and and I'm not going to shame you because of it. You know, like, I see you and I accept you where you're at. You know, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're not failing. Like, those things that we shame each other with, like, that's not community. Community is saying, I see you and I love you regardless of your flaws. And I accept you even because of them. Yeah. And if there's one thing, you know, that's wrong with the world, and there might be a lot of things, like, let's just talk about the U.S., you know? Yeah. There might be a lot of things, you know? But the reason that we have such shitty people leading us is because, and not just Donald Trump, you know, I'm not bashing totally.
Trump.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, you know? It's because we're screaming the exact opposite. You know, yeah. We're screaming to everyone the exact opposite of connection. We're screaming for them to do it by themselves. Right. You know? And look, I believe that. I believe each and every human can do it. You know? But I believe that you need a team of people that are going to hold your hand through that do it.
Yeah. We all have to walk our path, right? Like, we will have, and that path will involve obstacles and challenges and risks. But without people walking that path with us in different parts of their journey, without learning from those folks or accepting their help, you can do it, but it's just a whole lot more meaningful when you're with that community. And I couldn't agree more with you. I think fear is driving everything right now, and it's creating this divisiveness of, I cannot see myself in you anymore. And connection, I mean, truly, connection is being able to see at least some piece of you in another person, and being able to empathize, understand, try, just attempting to feel what that person's feeling. And we are driving a stake and a wedge through that so deep that it's kind of hard to see how we get out of it. But, you know, I know there is a way.
Well, we're going to have to find hell.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. Yeah. That's a great point.
We're going to have to find hell. So that's all that it's going to come down to. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's burning the forest to let like new trees come up, right?
Yeah. So, you know, man, and now, like, let's just we'll cut to it a little bit here. You know, I know you don't work with Phoenix anymore, but that was a big part of what you did, and I think, and I think this what Phoenix does that's really good is they get people doing hard stuff. Right? Yeah. They get people lifting weights and boxing and rock climbing and going on these hard bike rides, and when you do hard stuff, and this is my thing, you know, and this is a lot of people's things right now. When you do hard stuff, it prepares you for hell. Like, you're preparing yourself to go through. It's why I love jiu-jitsu, you know, because there's no out from the bottom of the mount, right? Like, you're exhausted and you're stuck, and someone's trying to take your life, you know? Like, man, look, if that guy chokes you or doesn't choke you, it doesn't fucking matter in the real scheme of things. But where it matters is you can survive. You learn to survive. And that's what we have to learn how to do. Like, that's the individual piece, right? Like, that's the individual piece, in my opinion, is you've got to be like, okay, here I am. I can do this. I don't know if I'm going to win. I'm going to survive. And, you know, and that's what hard shit does, man. That's what working out hard does. That's what jiu-jitsu does. That's what doing any struggle, any big physical struggle, and I believe it has to be physical, you know, because the physical puts us right in it, you know, because when you're there, it feels like death, right? You've been on the mat, and you're so tired, and the instructor's like, go again.
Yeah.
Go again. And you're like, I can't. And then, like, you do, you know, and you do go again. And fuck, man, that's a very powerful thing. Whether you win or lose doesn't fucking matter. That's just a very powerful thing.
Absolutely. And I think everything, and just the ability to lose with grace, right? And not lose your mental focus. Like, that was one of the great things that jiu-jitsu gave me, was this, like, I was so afraid of losing. But the fact is I lose all the time. I fail at a million things every day, you know, like, whatever it is, but it's the ability to walk through that and maintain the mental toughness and the mental strength that, like, you lose and you're right back at it. You lose and you're right back at it. And, like, that skill, like, it has been one of the, you know, I think does, just like you said, prepares you for that hell. Like, you are going to lose in this world. You are going to lose a lot, but being able to lose and bounce right back up and not have it phase you.
Lose with grace.
Yeah.
Let's end it right there. Let's lose with grace, everybody. You know, because when you lose with grace, you can just do it again.
Right.
You know. So, Rourke, man, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going. I mean, you know, it's not everyone's going to appreciate the depth in which you went there, right? And I know that can be very difficult sometimes. That's not, you know.
Yeah.
That's not always fun, man. So that ain't easy. You know, you lost with grace, right?
Yeah.
You would say.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I appreciate it, man. And give some people some outlets of things to do if they're the ones struggling right now with some sort of addiction. Where do they go? What do they do? What's the first, like, little baby step?
You know, I think the first baby step is just, you know, it seems silly and we all hear it, but it's reach out, you know, like, tell somebody, you know, whoever it is that you're struggling. You know, and it's so simple, but it's a step, right? It's admitting, because the next piece is you're going to have to reach out. If somebody is struggling, if you have a family member, if you have a loved one, there's a lot of options. You can, you know, the internet's a great tool for this. You can go online and there's the SAMHSA, and you type in any treatment or treatment support in the top line. It's going to be a SAMHSA, and it's going to be a directory of support services. So you can, I think that's a good start. You know, anybody local, or, you know, I'm sure my name will be on there. Like, reach out to somebody who you know in recovery. A lot of us know those folks, and they're going to be able to kind of talk to you and walk you through that. There's you know, I would say those two things. Look online, you know, get them some support. The most important thing for me is finding somebody who's gone through the same path as I have. Right. So if I can talk to somebody who's also gone through that hell, like you said, then there's a really good chance that person's going to join.
So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty and openness. And, yeah, just be there for people, guys. Just you know, even if they've burnt you, right? Even if they've burnt you and they've puked on you in the literal and the not literal sense, you know, just still try to be there if that person comes a knocking. So thanks, Rourke. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Eliot, you've been a mentor to me for a long time, and I really appreciate the opportunity here. Thanks so much.
Hey, guys, thanks for listening to this episode of The Gospel of Fire. Hit me up on my social media at FireMarshal205 on both Twitter and Instagram. Give me a follow at my fan page on Facebook, Eliot the Fire Marshal. Give a subscribe on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever you're listening. Throw a review up there. We'd greatly appreciate it. We'll see you on the next episode.